Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first match fan cams of season 2022, albeit a practice match fan cams, but we are psychotic nonetheless, and we'll talk about Carlton whenever they play, no matter what it is. It's good to be back. Today was a really good day for a few reasons, just to feel that energy again, and I think things and proceedings finally move away from 2021 and we move forward into 2022. So I'm excited to have everyone back for fan cams, and we'll see how we go tonight. Basically, just want to have an opportunity to hear what you have to say. So if you are comfortable with video, come on and share your thoughts. I'll share the link shortly. I've got a few people lined up already, and then I'll share the link and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the Blues ended up winning the practice match this morning, 9 goals, 13-67 to 8 goals, 12-60. It wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect, but there were a few positive signs, and I think it was a bit of a mixed bag. We got challenged. We had a 5-goal swing go against us, which was not great, and we're not here to just talk about the positives. We're here to talk about the whole picture, and obviously I did my review, but that's just from one person's lens. So I do want to hear from some of you who potentially went to the match or even just watched it on KO or came home from work or school and watch the replay and want to share some of your thoughts. So I'm going to get Pommy on first up, and let's begin. Pommy!
Hey, how are we doing?
Mate, first session for the year. Welcome back.
I'm privileged. I get to review 2 wins in a row. I did one with the lovely Shannon last night, and now I get to do one with you. Hey, how privileged. When was the last time Pom did 2 wins? Probably never.
Probably never, to be honest. Well, you sat on the watch along. You sat there watching the game. We didn't know you had a bit of a situation. We're glad that everything's okay. But you were there. You did what you needed to do. So tell us a bit about your experience and what you saw today.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was just nice to get the boys back, I think, as well. So we're a full club again, aren't we? The girls are out there and the boys are out there. That was good because I get tired of the talking, believe it or not. That might shock some people in the comments. I get a bit bored of it. I'm ready to get in the boxing ring and throw down. I think, first of all, I said in the preview that we'd know 5 minutes in. And I thought when you saw us handball backwards in the contest, we'll cover it a bit more later on, I'm sure, in the week statistically. But that was a real turning point for Carlton, the fact that they'll go backwards instead of forwards and not give up possession and look to retain it under pressure. I look at it a bit of a different way, though. People are going to criticise the 5-goal swing and get really melodramatic about it. But it's a practice game first and foremost. The doggies are quite confident and they lost to Essendon. What you're looking at is systems, and you don't practice to win. You practice to make perfects, and then you go out there and win from your system. And I thought one thing that impressed me, 5 goals down, Carlton kept attacking the corridor. They kept taking that risky kick. And the Carlton of the last 5 years, when they've got something that works, like that corridor kick, which really issued issues for St Kilda in the first, they kept attempting it. And that shows a team that's got faith in its system, hasn't got faith in each other. Where we watched Teague, they would have resorted quickly to a panic football and gone defensive. They were brave and still took the errors on, and it cost them 3 of them 5 goals. But full credit to them that it created another goal. Eventually, it stopped the swing. So I was quite happy with what I saw out. There was a lot more positives, I think, than there was negatives.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that first quarter, you could tell that our boys were itching to play some real footy against some people that were not themselves, so they could actually tackle and not worry about if they were hurting anybody. Obviously, the second quarter, it seemed to come undone a little bit. What did you put it down to? Was it just skill errors and just goals off turnover, or do you think we'll try and
it could be a number of things. I mean, like the commentator was saying that they didn't quite think it was Carlton on off the boil, and more it was more they were trying something new. We talked about it on the live that quite often teams do it. Melbourne were written up last year. They had a 7-goal swing in a practice game, and that was caught out as, Melbourne won't be very good this year. And Goodwin later on in the year confirmed he wanted to see how the backline handled pressure and kind of let it think. You saw Collingwood a couple of years ago when we had a practice game. Carlton were told to camp inside their 50 so they could work on a half-back transition. you never know. It's a practice game. These results don't matter. Like I say, look at Bulldogs. They're still pretty confident, and they got dipped by Essendon in the fourth quarter. They shelved all their superstars. So for me, I just thought it was maybe a little bit, I hate to use the phrase PTSD. At times, I thought our setup was wrong around the ball. They did seem to play a bit more defensive, whether that was player-led or whether that was Voss saying, let's see what happens if we set up under the cosh. I don't know, but I mean, for me, the takeout was, when was the last time Carlton had more than a 4-goal swing and got a result? Usually at that stage, they put the cue in the rack and it's run home to the mum status. So I was really pleased with that we saw a 5-goal swing. I wanted to, because if we have a 5-goal swing in Richmond and we never learn something in practice, this is where you want your 5-goal swings right now, when they've got 2 weeks to go home and actually work on what happened. In the season, you can't change it.
Yeah. I'll try my best not to make this an individual game, because I think you spoke about it on Monday, the things you were looking for, and in your video as well, it was you wanted to see something different. You wanted to see something that was, a change up from the way we were going about it last year. And I think also when it came to moving the ball, you've been a big advocate for using the handball, using the runners. We went and recruited a guy like Adam Sard and a guy like Zach Williams, and it looked like we were using them and looking to use them. And even a guy like Lockie O'Brien, it looked like we were trying to trust our teammates today.
Well, I think it was interesting. The second quarter, the big thing that changed is Carlton kicked 2-1 in handballs. And I've only done rudimentary stats. They're oscillating about 1.2 for the rest of the game, which, if you remember last year when I used to do my daily bag teague sessions, it was the good parts of Carlton were when we heavily handballed over our kicks. We did go back to that kicking game in the second, which it's hard to say. But I was really impressed with some of the players. The one guy that I'm going to give a bit of credit to, because I have bagged him all pre-season, much to your chagrin, Zach Fisher. He really did impress me. I was watching him and I was like, you know what? You've got something. You've taken your opportunity. I was a bit disappointed. You and me might butt heads about O'Brien. Personally, I watched O'Brien, and after the first, I was like, Lockie's back. He's back. But, I mean, it's only one game, isn't it? I mean, hopefully, what we can hope from this game is someone like Lockie O'Brien watches it back and goes, some of the mistakes I made were real basic. And he's better than that as a footballer.
I want to bring up a stat sheet that you created, because there aren't stats available right now, but I'm assuming you've gone and watched the game again and you've taken a heat map for Adam Chera. So this is Adam Chera's heat map, and you've looked at every disposal he had today, and it's not a bad game from the Ches.
Pure filth, isn't it? Pure filth. Adam Filth Dog, as he's now known. 73% touches. I mean, you haven't seen... You are 73% disposal efficiency as well, I might add. I didn't add that on there. That one was just for my own benefit. But yeah, it was a solid game, and you can see all around the ground. And I think that's something that you get with Adam Chera is he's an engine. And I think what's interesting about Adam Chera, every one of them kicks bar two was about 15 to 20 meters. They were short kicks and short handballs. He didn't take the game on, and that is something that we talked about last year at length. No one seems to want to keep the ball and put someone in a precious spot. Chera does that, and he's got such an engine. And let's be honest, he's pretty good, isn't he?
He's solid.
Pretty good.
He's very impressive. I think the overall thing with Chera was how seamless he seemed to fit in, and how much he was able to work off Cripps. And they've only had, one preseason together. And obviously things are going to ramp up. The season will come along. The pressure will elevate and the level will elevate as well. So it's not, a perfect fit just yet, but, good start, I think.
I got Judd vibes. Here we are. We're in February. The Pom's done it. Here it is. Wow. We're here. Now, I got Judd vibes in the terms of, do you remember Judd when he played really well? It wasn't like a Walsh type game. It was when he started finding a lot of the ball, and every person who touched it after him was in space and doing in a chance to do something. I thought that's when Judd played his best football, not when he was dominant, when he was being that provider, the playmaker, as it were, the Paolo like this, the Andrew Pirlo type role. That's where Judd was the best, when he was pinging the passes around and getting people involved. I thought that's what I saw from Chera. I thought our mistakes as well. One of the patterns I want to talk about in Analytics Corner this week is the 4 handballs. They seem to be a common theme of 1 handball went back from a tap, 3 forward, one after another. And the 4th guy invariably was Kennedy or Setterfield this week. And they're not very good with their disposal, let's be honest. I was thinking in a real game, that's going to be Walsh on the 4th one. And that's when we'll see how good Chera, Hewitt and Cripps are, when the guy who's buttering the bread is pretty good. So that really excited me. But I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah. No. Well said, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing what else you can come up with from the stats point of view and the analytics point of view. And the work just begins for you.
Mate, I'm in my element now. I'm just knee deep in numbers.
Love it. Love it. All right, mate. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, mate.
All right. Shannon, who was on a time constraint. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I love the commitment in the car.
Look, I've pulled over. I've got time before netball, so I thought I would jump in and give my 2 cents because I thought today was. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I don't know why. I always get excited before a season, but I feel like watching the boys today was a different brand of football that we haven't seen from them for a very long time.
Yeah. I think we were definitely moving the ball differently. Had a bit of a slip up, but responded and seemed to control the game. From my point of view, anyway, I thought we were in control of the game. And I think at the end of the day, what do you really want from a game like today? You want to see how we're playing. You want to see how the youngsters are going and maybe how some of the older guys are going who need to lift up their performance. And then obviously you want to get through without any injuries. And I think we ticked all the boxes. They say Charlie's fine, so don't know.
Look, when I messaged you about Charlie, I was like, oh my God, take a collective breath, because I know everybody was going to be up and about going, oh my God, we've lost Charlie too. I know there was a massive hype about Harry and how they thought he wasn't going to play round 1, but actually Hansen is a goer for next Thursday night. But I was really, really impressed, like Pommy said before, how we moved the ball in the middle. We weren't scared to continually do it. It's something that I think Vossi's probably challenged them with, is to keep persisting in the plan and in the structure and not just go into your shells and continue to kick long bombs. And when we couldn't use the corridor, we were actually lowering our eyes and chipping the ball around the boundary, something that I thought we did well for 3 quarters. And we were challenged by St Kilda in that last quarter, and we actually stood up and probably learnt from that second quarter when they came at us. And they came at us pretty hard because St Kilda are no slouches when it comes to moving that ball in the middle. And in that second quarter, they really opened us up quite easily. So that's something I was a little bit concerned about. But given it's only a practice match and we're not a full squad, I'm quietly confident that we'll beat Richmond round 1.
Love it. So the D's next week, I think we're going to have one of the better preparations going into a season, playing against the Premiers, who had a massive win in their practice match as well. So they're not taking anything lightly. They're just quietly done North Melbourne by 88 points. What are you going to be looking for to build off from today for next week?
I think it's the consistency in the middle and using the outside player. And I love the way, I think Cripps got a free kick, and I just love the way he had 3 options already waiting for him from the free kick, and they were actually running full pelt. They weren't doing the jog that we're so used to seeing, or the leisurely hand pass. Cripps was actually using that vision, and he had an option of Chera on the outside, but he used Sard on the inside and went straight into 50. Bang, mark, Charlie Curnow. It's like, that's the kind of stuff I want to see next week against Melbourne, because we know how good Melbourne can be, and they proved it today, even though it's a practice match. I just think, just that consistency out of the middle and the utilisation of all of our forwards and hitting targets. There was a couple of times I think Brody Kemp led really well. So I want to see him being persisted with in the forward line while we wait for Harry.
Yeah. For sure. That's the other thing as well. We saw Kemp played forward today, and I'm not sure if that's what we're going to be doing come round 1 if Harry's in there, because I also don't know if we're going to be playing Durden and Always as small forwards, even though it looked pretty good today. There's still a bit to go. There's still some questions that we've got to answer. But I guess today was step one of knowing a bit about what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think Williams off the halfback line today shouldn't go without a mention. I thought he played an exceptional game. I want to see him back it up against Melbourne. And I want to see your boy Dirds continue to shine because he played well today too.
He did play well today. He sure did. So you're going to get a win tonight in netball, I'm assuming, because you're up and about?
I hope so. I always seem to channel a Carlton win or any good vibes that have happened during the day when I go to play netball. So, yeah, we'll see. I'll probably be tired afterwards because I hate playing netball late on a Thursday night. But, hey, it is what it is. But, no, keen for a W and move it into next week for a W for the boys.
Love it. Love your work. Love your work and the girls as well. And we'll see you next Wednesday for the AFLW show.
Yep, only a few to go. So sad, but keen.
It's been a good season. Good on you, Shan.
No worries. See you, Tez.
See ya. All right. I've got one of the almost Blues brothers.
You caught me in the middle of eating some lasagna. But no, I'm good. What's going on, mate? How are you?
It's ironic you say that. Mr. Adam Chera loves a bit of lasagna as well. Is that because of him?
Wasn't actually, but it's very ironic in a sense. No, it was look, it was a good game. I mean, a lot to work on still, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looked different, right? Like that's what I was looking for. The first thing I looked at was whether or not we were moving as one defensively, and we were. Dan pointed out, we went with Dan today as well. He pointed out we're playing man on man, and we were for the majority of, for all of that first quarter especially, and the majority of the game. But it wasn't just man on man. Like as soon as there was a turnover, everyone moved in unison as a unit from one side of the park to the other if there was a switch, which we didn't see last year. The corridor opened up how many times last year, and it was just so, frustrating to see. So that was good off the bat. That was good to see, and that was the biggest thing that I wanted to see as a difference. In terms of ball movement, the intent was good. The execution was poor. There's no other way for me to say it. Like we run ourselves into trouble way too easily. Like we're genuinely our own worst enemy when it comes to ball movement. I feel like there's little pissy handballs that should just be a little quick one, no fumbles, but it's at the knees or it's at the feet or there's a fumble from the receiver, and it just puts so much more pressure on you, especially on that half back line. I don't know how many times I saw it today, but execution's a big one. I think the intent and the way that we want to move the ball, you can see what we're trying to do now from today. It'll be interesting to see whether or not with more pressure from Melbourne next week, because it really wasn't a high-intensity game for me, to be honest. Melbourne are going to bring the heat in their last hit out going into the season. It's going to be very, very interesting to see if that exacerbates against an opposition like Melbourne. If it does, we're going to get punished. So it's going to be interesting next week.
Yeah, I like what you said about how, for the most part, we look like we moved in unison as an 18. And if you look at the Ds, I remember watching us play against them last year, and throughout the whole year as well. That was something that really stood out from my point of view about them, and the fact that we get to play them next week, and they're going to bring the same thing. They're going to bring that experience. They've got absolute confidence in their system. I think it's the perfect test. So when we front up next week, what are some of the things you're going to be looking at that need to change? I mean, you did mention the execution of some of the skills, but what are some of the things you think will be tested on?
I mean, for next week, it's purely going to be we're coming up against the best team in the comp, right? Next week's not about individual brilliance. Adam Chera was amazing today. I thought he played brilliantly, but again, in a low intensity game, it's going to be very, very different next week. Thought Sard was really good today, to be honest. Oscar McDonald, obviously, which I know you're blowing goats over him, which is, it's he's got that locked.
Too early.
He's got that locked, and I think him, Wiedering, and McGovern can all actually play. They looked like they had a bit of a rhythm today with McGovern peeling off as an interceptor. But next week, you want to see us compete for 4 quarters. If we have a second quarter like we did today, it's not going to be a 5-goal run. It'll be an 8 or a 9-goal run, and the game will be gone. So next week for me, it's all about just consistency across the 4 quarters and just making sure that we're cleaner. We're cleaner in our execution. The intent was good, but now if we're gonna beat sides that are better than us, and if we're gonna compete week to week, we need to be better in our execution. The intent's there, the game plan's there, but the execution with ball in hand is still poor. Out of stoppages today was good. It needs to be just as good next week against Melbourne, considering the midfield they've got. But around the ground, if we run ourselves into trouble with these little shitty turnovers that we see, that I saw so many times today, it's going to be 10 times worse. So we'll see. I'm keeping a very, very tight lid on it. I don't care that we won by 7 points today. It's got to be better.
Yeah. The defensive structure was one that I was looking at today and how we'd set up. And I had to listen to Ashley Hansen after the game. He did the press conference and he said that we're having a look at, Wiedering and Oscar McDonald as our two big boys with Mitch McGovern playing as that third or that intercept player. And I find it really interesting what happens when Plowman's back into the fold, when Stocker's back into the fold. We know he's going to be playing in defense. Kemp, when he does play in defense, I know he did most of the preseason there. One of the things that was interesting for me today was they switched Wiedering and King, and they put McDonald on King and allowed Wiedering to play a little bit more as a centre-half forward, which was probably what he was drafted as. Did you have any thoughts on that defensive setup, and do you think that's how we move forward?
I didn't look at it specifically, but now that you mention it after watching the replay especially, Wieders did play that centre-half back role at times. I mean, they were doing that with Jones, though, last year. I remember in the Saints game last year, Wieders got absolutely towed up by Max King in the first quarter, and they switched Jones onto him, and Wieders became that centre-half back, floater, interceptor, just playing off his man type role. So if McDonald can play a similar role to what Jones did, it just helps Wiedering with his game, because it just takes the pressure off him having to take that number one forward every week. And I think McDonald did brilliantly when he went onto King today. We kept King pretty quiet, which was good.
Yeah, I had to listen to the St Kilda Saints TV review. Jake did it, and they gave us some kudos. He said that we were a strong side, and I was reading the comments, and they thought King dominated today, which I thought was a very interesting way to look at the game. But
didn't see it.
Didn't see it.
Didn't see it. No, look, all in all, good to be back. Good to just get a little win, but next week's the real test. That'll show where we're at. Because they came out and they belted North Melbourne today. They're not taking the foot off the pedal. This is what good teams do. They just steam through. So if we want to get to that level, we need to bring the heat straight away next week.
Yeah. No, spot on. Looking forward to it, mate. Good on you. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, mate. See ya.
Paulo.
Terry, hello, mate.
Mate, good to see you again.
Yes. Good to be back on the fan cams after a game, and good to be back at Icon Park with the Carlton faithful. We got our big heads on the KO stream as well. So anyone who took annual leave and said they were sick, well, they were well and truly caught today. How was the crowd? The crowd was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was saying it. I said it in my review. There was a moment in the first quarter. Jack Silvani tackled, I don't know who it was, but he pinned him holding the ball, kicked the goal, and the crowd's reaction to that I turned and I was next to Kira at the time, and we looked at each other and we were like, oh wow, like we are back and we are in full voice. Yeah. And then the people started flocking.
Yeah, it was nice to see it, nice to hear that buzz around the footy again, and yeah, just good to see people and have a chat about it all. I think, like from a game perspective, it was I think there were more positives than negatives. Would you say? I think so. When you win, I think that's the case. But for me, I don't think the result. Not that the result doesn't matter, but I think coming into the practice games and coming into this season, there's a worry. I think there's still a little bit of a worry as to who's going to plug certain holes when we actually go out there in round one. And I think we did that reasonably well today. I was quite taken aback by how Kemp presented up forward, given that he hasn't really. I know he did play there a little bit as a junior when he was coming through the ranks as that sort of utility, sort of floating through the middle, up forward and down back. But I thought he presented really, really well today. I think we've got a really good swingman on our hands with him too, and he took his goal really well, which is a big thing too. So finishing your work's massive. But look, all in all, for me, like Chera, I'm sold with him now. I know it's only a practice game, but I really like the way he took control the midfield for the majority. And how was that? How was a left foot goal?
Well, I think in that moment, that was off the Cripps handball. That's right.
Yeah,
Because he kicked two. One was off a Cripps handball.
Yeah.
The other one was off a Brody Kemp kick, which we were kind of saying, go back and kick it. But just on Brody Kemp, he seems like he's just a footballer, a natural footballer.
Yeah.
And to have a utility that can actually be a utility, I think is something that is a pipe dream. And like everyone thinks about utilities as, as swingmen and whatnot. But he showed a little bit in defense last year. He showed a little bit in attack today. Where he starts in when the real season comes along, we're yet to see. But it's good to know that he didn't look unnatural up forward today.
No, not at all. And I think the beauty for him too is that he was able to find space on the lead, which and he got a bit of separation too, which is, I think that's the big thing that you need to focus on especially when you haven't really played up forward at that level he never really has. I don't think he come in as a backman last year. So, and I think Oscar McDonald looks like he's held down his spot down back to a few little mistakes, ball in hand, but all in all, I think aerially he's really strong. And I think that was maybe the worry with Jones going out, that we weren't going to have someone strong aerially to sort of, make up for his loss. But he seemed to fit in pretty seamlessly alongside Wiedering, and McGovern being third man up, we know he's good in the air as well, and he uses the ball nicely. So I think he looked a lot more comfortable down back with the ball and play coming to him rather than him having to sort of lead out towards the ball and demand it. So, look, all in all, I think, as I said, more positives than negatives. But I think the one thing for me, and it's one of my bugbears, and I kept speaking about it last year too, just the running patterns from behind a player who's got the ball on the mark. Like Saar did it a few times where he ran to his right, then he had to stop, check, come back in, and it happened a few times. And I just those little simple things that if you get right, you continue to build momentum up the field, and you've got that fluid movement going forward, which is massive in footy these days, especially when you break up the play. So, look, Cripps looked like he was back to his inside type of game style, wasn't he? He was real in and under and extracting the ball out, and that's where he played his best footy. They tried to shed weight off him and tried to make him cover the ground and be something he's never been. I understood that, but now it's just stick to your guns, really. And the same can be said for Lockie O'Brien. Don't worry about your contested ball, mate. Just stay out on the wing and win the footy. Granted, he had a few mistakes, which were, look, it's going to happen. And I think he will build on that as he builds into his year. But I like what I saw from him. I think he will play. I think he'll play the first game.
I think so too. And the other challenge as well is, he had a good first quarter, I thought. His second quarter, there were a few mistakes. And obviously, in the past, those are mistakes where he might have been dropped or he might have been we don't really know how he was coached and how he was spoken to. So the challenge now is, what does Vossi do? How does he communicate with him? Does he try and motivate him? It's a hard one to ask, because it's like, how do you get the best out of someone who's made a few mistakes? Do you drop them and give them a clear instruction, or do you give them another go and show confidence? And I think that's the fine line that Vossi and the group are going to have to figure out with these players. And that's where I think it'll take time, because you've got to establish these buttons that you can push with different players who have different personalities,
Of course, yeah. And I think the big thing for him, and it's not something that you really clap or applaud, but I think after those mistakes he made in that sort of middle period, he kept going. He didn't shy down. He was still there around the contest, and it was probably the first time at I say AFL level, but in a first game where he hasn't been a ghost for a period of the game. He was always involved, which I think maybe it could be something to do with the coaches, or maybe tactically they've just positioned him in a position where he's able to have more of an influence on the play. I think he held his width really well on the weekend today. So that's a big thing too. And a really big rap for the two small forwards, Owis and Durden, who have locked those two small forward spots away for round one. I think I really liked Durden's attack on the ball, and he was another player who was able to find space, and he was real smart. there was one passage of play in particular where he was sort of on the wing and striding towards half back, and he sort of doubled back and created space out the back, and it allowed him to get an easy uncontested mark. So see, stuff like that you can't really teach, So I think him and Owies have got that forward spot locked down, which is, it was up for grabs, wasn't it? That area of the ground. So and Owies hit the scoreboard again. He's got a knack of doing that, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he just pops up.
He finds a way. I think Durden, by his own admission, he wants to work on getting more involved in the play and getting a bit more of the ball. And like that passage of play there, I think that was the one where he and Jack Silvani kicked it to each other and then sprinted forward and got the ball back off each other a couple of times. And if he's doing that once or twice a game and he finds a way to get involved in the play up there and finds a way to hit the scoreboard once or twice a game, what more can you ask for from a small forward?
No, spot on. And mentioning Jack too, I thought he was good again today. I think he's another lock for the 22 come round one. So look, I think more positives than negatives, and again, but plenty to work on. It's just still the same skill errors. But I think what I liked too was that we were able to clam up after halftime. I thought it was like, like Saints have really got on top, but they regrouped halftime, did what they had to do, clammed up defensively, and look. I like the fact that they continued to use handball change, and it was short, sharp when it needed to be, rather than kick and hope.
Yeah.
And again, look, you're missing two of your best players in Walsh and Mackay. They would have added plenty to that game, especially Harry structurally. So whether he plays next week, we might see something completely different, but that he'll probably be safe for round one by the looks of it. And hopefully Charlie's okay too. Channel 7 reckon he was going for scans or something like that, and he jarred his knee or something. So hopefully all's well. Hansen said all was okay. So that's all I'm really hoping for with these games too. Like blokes like that just come through with a clean bill of health, really. So I think it's a tick. Today was just a tick.
Yes, I'm using the analogy of building the foundation brick by brick, and I asked the question. I'm going to ask it at the end of every game for the next. Pretty much for this year. Did we lay a brick today? I think we laid one brick. Yeah. And then next week we're going to see if we can lay one more brick.
Yeah.
So
exactly. All systems go heading into next week, and hopefully we can charge into round one with all guns blazing with Sam Walsh in the midfield.
Fingers crossed.
I'm not saying too much.
Okay. All right. I love your work, mate. I'll chat to you soon.
All right, crew. All the best.
See you, mate.
Enjoy.
All right. So I've got Nathan from the Carlton Wrap in the waiting room. I'm now going to put the link in the comments. So if anybody would like to come and have a chat and share their thoughts, the link is now in the comments. Basically, you'll sit here in a waiting room. It can fit 12 max. So it's just first in, best dressed. Click the link, put you on. We'll have a chat for a couple of minutes and get your thoughts, and we'll go from there. I'd love to chat to as many faces as we can or that are willing to chat. So, Nathan, we'll get you in, mate. Hello.
Hello, Tez. How are you?
Mate, good. Good to see you again in the better version of the warm-up top.
The better version of the warm-up top. Can't believe they changed it. Unbelievable.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty happy with what I saw in the end. I think, well, firstly, it was good to be back. I haven't seen them since that Geelong game last year before COVID stopped them for the rest of the season. So it was nice to be back. A couple of things I sort of noticed straight away. The centre clearance work was touched up on a bit, and I like the way Voss's presented them with a new tactical way of moving forward. And like Pom said, I mean, he finds these little tactical things out of nowhere, like this one handball back 3-4. Like only he's going to pick up on these things, but clearly it's working for them. They know what they're doing. I like that. I sort of as well in the second quarter, as much as we were getting that momentum swing against us, I thought we actually held up well this time, whereas most games we would just concede them in about like 5 goals in like 15 minutes, whereas we made it much harder for them to score this time, which I can accept that. At least there you can tell they've still got that intent to go forward. And like even if if Charlie had converted one of those 2 missed shots, they would have broken that chain of goals. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And the big part is you want to be challenged. You don't want it to be easy. I think Pommy mentioned it before. We don't, or Joe mentioned it. Like, if we don't have a 5-goal swing, or we don't have anything go against us in this preseason with our practice matches or our preseason matches, and then we get to round 1 and we get challenged, it's important to see how we respond. And I think last year was one of those seasons where, all right, it wouldn't go our way, and then we'd get a 5-goal swing, for example, against us, and you could just see the heads drop and the confidence drop. So to see us still manage to get back in the game, get it back on our terms, move the ball the way we wanted to, and not change the way we were moving the ball out of panic, was, a little tick as we move on. How in terms of who played today, we've mentioned a few names. Was there anything that you saw today that you didn't expect and that took you by surprise?
I guess apart from Kemp up forward, which I think was just trying something out sort of thing. I can't tell if that's a permanent switch or it's just something they tried out. Otherwise, I was interested seeing that smaller forward line. I guess they didn't have much choice with the team they fielded, but it was quite interesting, that dynamic, seeing the way they moved the ball up forward. They had to lower their eyes this time instead of bombing forward. They didn't have that option of Harry in, the top of the goal square. They had Charlie, but I don't think that was what they wanted to do. But otherwise, I was like Setterfield on the win. I like, because I love him. He didn't play extremely well, but I like seeing him there. I think because that's where he originally started in 2019, and that's where he played his best footy. So I think it's going to be hard for him to actually keep his spot, because unless he plays his best footy, I think Voss will be pretty hard on him and whether he gets a spot in that starting 22. But otherwise, I was sort of happy where most were getting played. I was surprised Williamson didn't get pushed up on the wing. That was the one thing I noticed. I thought that Voss would want to implement that, but it could happen in the Melbourne game. But otherwise, I wasn't too surprised in the end.
Yeah. When we talk about players to come in, there's quite a few. So I might break it down a bit. If we look at the forward line and how it was set up today, I would assume Harry would be a lock to come into the side in that forward line. And I would assume if he's fit, Jack Martin would also be one of the first picked in that forward line. Or is that the question for you? If you've got those two to come into the forward line that played today, what do we do with the forwards? Assuming maybe Brodie Kemp goes into another spot in defence or on the bench or whatnot, what do you do with the forward line?
Yeah, it's interesting because I reckon it'll be quite a game-by-game basis on who performs well, because sort of we said today with Owies and Durden, like it's interesting to see if those two will get, they'll play 2 or 3 small forwards. I think Martin's a must in that forward line. I think he offers a little more than someone like Owies does in terms of his craft and his ability to weave through traffic. And just when the ball comes in to a pack, he often reads the play really well, where he'll sit outside the contest and he'll find crafty goals. But I'm expecting more of a game-by-game lineup this year, if that makes any sense. I think Teague gifted players games week in, week out, no matter how good or bad they play, or how bad they played, really. So, I don't know. I think it's a good thing that I'm not sure what to expect in terms of, a rolling 22.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then the other question I had was, you touched on Setterfield on the wing, and that's the other position where we've got a bit of a question mark, because we know that O'Brien is a wingman and we want it to work with him. The game started with Setterfield on one wing and O'Brien on the other. And I think Paul said it before, O'Brien keeps his width. Setterfield didn't do a bad job today. I even thought he started getting into the contest as the game went on, and he played a little bit more inside in that third quarter. But is that another thing that's going to be game by game? Because there's the notion that Jack Noons can run through there. I even saw Zach Fisher at times running through those wing channels as well, keeping wide and just being a presence even behind the ball at times. So how do you see that? It's not just two people, it seems. It seems like there's probably going to be 4 or 5 that rotate through there.
Well, O'Brien, look, I just can't fall in love with O'Brien. And I just, what I saw today, he really only has his left foot, or else he's just it's one game. I'll give him a couple more games to show if there's improvement, because it could have just been another poor game. But I don't think he's strong enough to match quite a lot of the top teams and their windmen. I don't think he will. I think he'll get dominated quite a lot. As much as you can be, like, positionally, you can be strong in knowing where to go. If you can't outwork your opponent and do the little thing, I just don't think it will work for him. I would like to see Williamson get pushed up. I don't know if it will happen, but I feel like if it is going to happen, it would have happened today at some point, or the Melbourne game. But Fisher, I think, is worth giving a shot, because if you put Martin in that forward line, I think you can probably transition both of them. Not so much Martin, but definitely Fisher. I think he's someone who, if I was an opposition, I'd hate to play on him, just because you would lose track of where he is, and he can work into that space pretty well. But no, it is interesting. And I think a lot, like you said, I think a lot of players could take that role, and even more than a game-by-game basis, a quarter-by-quarter basis, just depending on how the game's going.
Yeah. Did we lay a brick today? Did we lay a brick?
I'm going to say 3/4, just because I want to see if they can back up those like changes against Melbourne, because I just want to see two goes, if that makes sense. Because I think, yes, there's changes, but I just want to see if it's actual definite, or they just decided like they played really well.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's something we mustn't forget, because last year there was a lot of 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 2 weeks off. So it's actually a really good point. All right, lovely. Well, mate, we'll chat to you next week, and we'll go from there.
Easy. Cheers, Des.
See you, mate. Riley Starai.
How are you, mate?
It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's good to be back, and it was good to watch us today. Nice Thursday morning treat. Certainly more positives than negatives, I thought. Both from a team integrity perspective, but I think from some individualistic perspectives, which you've sort of covered, but we'll cover a bit now. Structurally, our midfield looked a lot different, didn't it? And I think in a good way, just the way we set up around stoppages, and we sort of starting to see what that depth is really going to sort of look like. Everyone was thinking, oh, Walsh isn't, what are we going to do without Walsh? It didn't look too bad today. I thought our midfield was certainly quite assertive compared to the Saints for the most part.
Yeah, I think you're on. I think you're spot on with that. I mean, Vossi spoke about not, changing the narrative last week. Yes, Walsh is out and he's a big player and he's a best and fairest and all Australian player, but that's just not going to be who we want to be. I think that's the kind of reason why you go out and you get a Chera and a Hewitt. I think our depth was not as good as what we were hoping it would be last year in the midfield, and I think the two of them, seem to cover that hole pretty well today. And I mean, those two in particular, Chera and Hewitt. I mean, watching them in person, they're definitely a class above what we have already had. And then you also touched on the selection. There were a few things that kind of caught me by surprise, in a sense. I didn't expect Dow to be named in the twos. I was a bit surprised by that. I was pleasantly surprised that it was a bit of a statement. And then Fogarty as well. Now, I know Fogarty played in the fourth, but the fact that, first choice, I mean, in my opinion, what they're picking today to play in the ones is generally, maybe not for sure, but generally I sense that is who's in the top of the pecking order.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it was certainly a statement on Paddy Dowd. Fogg is one of those players I would consider on the bubble, as was a couple who played probably full games. Say Will Setterfield's one of them. Jack Nunes is another that's on the bubble for me. Even a guy like, and he had a very good back half of the year last year, but a Matt Kennedy's another one of those that's on that sort of bubble that, it's going to be a week for week, horses for courses thing. You mentioned to Nathan previously our wing position. I think that's one of the biggest queries we've got going into this season. I know we want to persist with O'Brien on one of those wings, but what are we going to do on the others? And because we've got essentially this surplus of half-backs that can attack, are we just going to start rotating them through there in the midfield? Is it going to be a Doherty that fills it? Are we going to try persist with a Will Setterfield to maybe add that little bit more of a physical presence on that wing? It's one of the main questions I've got going into the year, to be honest.
Yeah. I asked before about with Nathan about the forward line and what would happen if Harry and Martin are to come into the side. So I want to ask you about the back line, because we saw this I guess you start the back line with your three pillars, which today was Wiedering, McDonald and McGovern, and then you sprinkle in Newman, you sprinkle in Sard Williams, who did push up the ground at certain times as well, and then I guess Noons sort of came back, and you got Williamson who goes back there. So my question is, what happens when Plowman is ready and available, in your opinion, and then a guy like a Stocker as well?
I think Plowman is another one that might be in a little bit of trouble. I think they'll try to persist with him early as maybe that fourth option playing on that small. Because if you look at that lineup today with the three tools, I don't consider Sard or Williams to necessarily have the ability to lock down on a small consistently. I mean, Sard could be very good one-on-one, whereas we've seen Plowman do that on occasion, so that's probably what might get him the start, particularly for someone like Jordan Boyd who played today. I don't anticipate to see Boyd much this year personally. It's a real tough one, our backline, just because of how those pieces are going to fit. And then you've got Doherty, and then you've got Stocker, so you've got 8 or 9 options through there, and you can only play 6. So I anticipate you're going to see some mid-wing defensive rotations that will come through from that back line. I wouldn't be surprised if at stages this year we even see an Adam Sard on the wing, like in those games where we feel we can exploit an opposition defence because of how penetrating he can be and break those lines. It's a tough one, but for me, I think Plowman will fit in there, especially when he's still probably our best defender on a small at this current stage for mine.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. I didn't even mention Sam Doherty, who, from all reports, could be playing next week and might even be playing in the AFL. If it's not round 1, if it's not round 2, it could be round 3 or round 4, but pretty much early in the season. He's another one that gets thrown up when we talk about putting somebody on the wing. It is a bit of an interesting one. And the other part that I think I've realised and I've come to peace with is the word patience. Now, I know we don't like the word, but I still feel like that back line needs to gel a little bit more. That forward line probably needs to gel a little bit more. And what it looks like in round 1 won't be as good as what it looks like in round 11. And what it looks like in round 11 won't look like what it looks like in round 20. So how do you go with the expectation and the patience?
Mate, we're not going to know what this team's capable of till round 9. The fact of the matter is that, number one, it's a completely new coaching staff and philosophy that's come in across the board. We've retained Luke Power, but outside of that, it's been, it's complete wholesale changes. Today was one of the first times a lot of our major recruits for the last 3 years have actually played together. So there's still their level of all gelling and playing together. There was that narrative over the last couple of years where people were talking about there was only, I think it was 8 or 9 games that McGovern, Mackay and Curnow played together up forward. And now you're basically throwing, McGovern down back. You're adding in different elements there. Chera's into that midfield mix. It's going to take time to gel. There are going to be bits which are going to look really good, and there are going to be bits where it's going to look poor. And even you saw that today in just communication, probably 6 or 7 occasions, stuff as simple as 3 players going for the ball and them all going for a shepherd instead of one actually going for the football. Now, that's a fundamental thing, but that's also communication. It cost us a goal at one stage. A couple of defensive transition things where, by and large, I thought it looked a hell of a lot better, but we still got cut open a couple of times. It's gonna take some time. So I think if we can get to round 8, round 8, 4-4, 5-3, we'll be okay. We're just going to keep our head above water for the first 2 months, and then we'll see what we're truly capable of, I think.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is the coaching group hasn't been tested. And you get tested when you lose. You get tested when things don't work, and how you respond from that is the important part. So we've got heartbreak around the corner. We're going to have some losses around the corner for sure. We're going to have hopefully some solid wins as well, and hopefully we can get a little bit lucky early on while we're still figuring it out, and hopefully those games pay us back later in the year.
Absolutely, I think the first couple of months it's probably going to be a little bit of a roller coaster at different stages, and there'll probably be a call from certain sections saying what's changed. But I think for me, in the question of did we lay a brick today, I think we did. And I think we saw enough today structurally to see, okay, things are going to be different. And I think they're going to be different in not just stuff as simple as, intent on the man. I think that in the first 5-10 minutes, you could just see it was a different to what we've seen over the last couple of years. And that's a pleasing thing. That's a start.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there for sure. So let's see how we go in literally 7 days from today. We'll be halfway through quarter one against the Ds. And that'll be the ultimate test because, said it before, the way they move as a collective is the best in the competition. So I think we're looking to do something like that with our team defense and the way we move forward as well. Melbourne's spread beautifully. They just know where the next man is going to be. So I'm really excited for how tough next week will be. My last question is, what is it about in your head for next week? What are some of the changes and what are some of the things you want to see us do?
I think I certainly want to see improvements in execution. That was probably one of the main things today, which you could sort of write down to, it's, game one of the year in terms of a practice match. But there was some pretty execution today, which was, pretty ordinary. I think that I don't, and maybe it was just because some of the camera angles on KO were quite frankly pretty ordinary, but some of the movement inside forward 50 I thought was pretty bad. Not even just the delivery in, but even just the general presentation at certain stages. I can present it quite well, but generally it looked quite stagnant at different times. So I'd like that to look a little bit more cohesive. And I think as well, Joe touched on it magnificently before when it comes back to execution, but I think we need to be at times more decisive with the way we handball, because sometimes it was a little, very, minimalistic effect, high risk sort of actions that were just almost trying to play hot potato. So I think those are the sort of things we want to clean up, but those are the sort of things you expect in round one of pre-season. That's why we need to play pre-season games every year, despite the risk of injuries.
100%, mate. Well, listen, it's been good to chat with you. I look forward to seeing your face a little bit more.
Absolutely. Talk soon, man.
See you, mate. All righty. I've got one in the waiting room, so I might make a last call if anybody wants to join. Please hit the link. Otherwise, Kyle will be our final guest. Hello, mate.
Hey, Terry. How you going?
I'm good. I'm excited to be back into normal operations. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very happy that we got the win today. Obviously, it's just pre-season, it's just practice games, but there were a lot of positives. There were still a fair few negatives, but I feel like most of those negatives can be worked on fairly easily. Like a lot of our skill execution was pretty ordinary, but that's just a bit of rust from being out of the game for so long and only playing match simulations instead of actually playing against other teams. But today I actually thought our backline did pretty well. Like if you're keeping any team to 60 points, that's pretty bloody good in my opinion. So there's definitely improvement that needs to be done, but I feel like with the outing of Liam Jones, I feel like it's not going to be as much of an issue as we previously thought.
Yeah. Well, we are changing up the structure, aren't we? Where it's sort of we built around Wiedering and Jones, and then now we're looking at a Wiedering, McDonald, McGovern sort of trio of talls with some other guys who they're not as tall. They've probably been playing a little bit taller than what they actually are. And it might give a guy like Nick Newman some more freedom to use his offensive flair, even though he is a defender. And it might give a guy like Stocker, when he gets back in, that opportunity, depending on what we do. I know that Sard and Williams were really the beneficiaries today of that offensive game because they were surging forward and getting handball receives and really helping us move from D50 to O50, we'll call it. But what else? Was there anything else that maybe hasn't been spoken about yet that caught your attention?
Jack Silvani really caught my eye in terms of today was the first time I really saw him playing at what his size is, because I feel like as a makeshift ruckman, he's been playing a lot smaller than what he is. And because when you tell people that he's your makeshift ruckman that don't go for Carlton, they're completely and utterly shocked because he just does not play his size, and you can't really tell by the camera angles on the TV about how big they all are. And I feel like today was the first time we've seen him play actual tall forward for pretty much the whole game. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, I think the idea in my head of, Harry, Charlie with Jack Silvani as the third tall sounds a little bit more better than, Harry, Charlie and Mitch McGovern. I'm not sure if Mitch is someone we can rely on as a forward for a full season, maybe in patches, maybe for a quarter here or there. But no, it's a good point. It's a very good point. Good to chat to you, mate.
You too, Terry.
Is this your first time on the fan cams?
Second, I think. Yeah.
Second. All right. Well, we have to get you on a bit more.
All right. See you later.
See you,
Thanks,
Lynch.
Terry.
Maddie.
Hi, Terry.
Hello. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good to be back home watching the boys play.
Much better. Like being back there.
Yeah.
I thought our midfield did really well, and I was very impressed with it considering everyone's hype about Walsh being out and we're destroyed, that's it, we're done. But I thought that's exactly why you got Chera and Hewitt. And I like Hewitt's on ball. I thought sending Chera towards, the defense or the forward when we needed, and then Hewitt just being on the wing and having the ball. I really like that combination.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we definitely recruited those guys to fill, well, first of all, to give us a bit more depth. But then if one of our midfielders goes down, they can kind of pick up the slack a little bit. Kind of makes you wonder, I know it's one game, it's a practice game, but it makes you wonder, what does that all look like when Walsh is in the side? And you've got Walsh, Cripps, Chera and Hewitt. And then that's, I guess, where the imagination goes and you get excited and you start thinking about how good it can be. Obviously, it's one practice game and we haven't proven anything yet to anyone, but it looked a little bit better. It looked a little promising.
It did. I liked Cripps's game as well. I thought it's not 2019 yet, but it's definitely headed that way.
I think so.
We saw him after the game, and I told him, I'm like, I thought it was a really good game, and then I also saw Walsh turn up afterwards.
Yep.
And I thought it was, he's not on crutches. He was just on the moon boot. And I thought, last week he had surgery?
Yeah.
Managing to, walking, it's got that weight on it. To me, that's impressive to have that strength. It's ankle surgery.
I imagine Walshy waking up every 2 hours, putting an alarm on so he can ice his foot, go back to sleep, and then wake up again. I imagine him doing some crazy regime to get himself right. Now, Tom Brown reported yesterday that he's a chance for round one. I'm very much in the camp of just let it go. No. When he's ready, give him an extra 2 to 3 weeks, even if he says he's ready, because what's the point?
Agree.
What's the point in a short-term gain when you've got a guy that you know you're going to build around him for the next decade, if not more? But I guess I'm just being super conservative, and we just haven't had a good run with injuries to our stars. So, no. But listen, if he's that much of a freak and he finds a way to get ready for round one, then I guess that the medical team will do what they're paid to do.
I can see how he would be being Walsh and knowing. He'd be trying everything under the sun to get there.
Yeah.
If I was the medical staff saying, no, just leave it for
just chill out
a few weeks. Yeah.
Nah, spot on. So who was your best on ground today? Who was the standout player?
For me, it was Jack Silvani. I know people have mentioned him several times already, but having him in that forward line, I thought today especially we saw exactly what he's capable of.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen that power and the strength to take the mark, take the shot, take it from the players, like all of it. And I thought today was very impressive. I thought, finally got there.
Yeah, like it. Yeah. I think when you think about Jack always brings the heat and the pressure. When you look at him, Owies, and Durden in the forward line, that's a lot of forward pressure and some serious speed as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it stacks up against the best in the league next week. Are you going to be there?
I can't next week, but round 1 I will be.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we will speak to you, if not next week, then we'll speak to you at the season launch.
I will. I'll be
All
there.
right. See you, Maddie.
Thanks.
Bye. John.
Terry, how you going, mate?
Mate, I'm good. I believe this would be one of your first times on the fan camps.
This is my first fan cam, yes.
Welcome.
So, thanks, mate. It's been a while, but, I finally built up the courage to get on. So I missed the game today because I'm over here in good old Western Australia. But
I'll just pause you there for a moment. I think you've got your YouTube tab open. If you want to mute or close your YouTube tab because you're just echoing a bit.
Yeah, I noticed that. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, right.
How do I?
So where you've got YouTube, you just close that.
I noticed that. Sorry, mate. Yeah, right. That's better.
Much better. Away you go.
All right. So just wanting to really know, it sounds like everyone's kind of positive about the game. There are a few improvements, but we got to realize like this is a new system, some new players, and this is the first time they really had a good hit out. So as you're saying, laying the brick, one brick, and the next week's another brick, and by round 10, hopefully they're firing. The main kind of thing. I think the main thing I'm looking forward to this year is seeing Harry and Charlie together. Charlie's still on a few of the defensive players of Harry. So, Harry's he's not having to beat 3 players. And then, it's a decision for the defense to work on. Who do we go to? Are they going to Charlie? Are they going to Harry? Who are we going to mark? What's going to happen? Rather than they're going to kick the ball to Harry. All we got to do is stop Harry.
Yeah, there was I saw a stat. I think they've played 27 games together. And if you look at 2021, for example, obviously Harry wins the Coleman. He kicks 58 goals, which is a great return. But there are a lot of times where by the end of the season, it was double teamed, triple teamed. And so the idea is with Charlie, I'm not really expecting him to be the Charlie Curnow that, we were hoping he was going to become. I still think he needs some continuity. But the fact is, if he's on the ground, he's going to need a serious defender on him to stop him. And that is one defender that would not be on Harry last year.
Well, that's exactly right, mate. I kind of hope, between the two of them, it's, by the end of the year, 100, 120 goals. If Harry can kind of kick his 60 again, and, Charlie gets up towards 40, 50 goals, I reckon that, you kind of see it every year. Your first couple of teams score 1,800 points. 4. So if we can do that, we've got to be up there somewhere. Or if we kick 1,600, 1,500, we're in the top 6 kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if you look at last year, Eddie Betts was our second leading goal kicker with 27. He's obviously not there anymore. So I think we need to replace that second leading goal kicker and probably get a third in there that can kick 20 goals, or maybe 2 guys that can kick, or 3 guys that can kick 17 to 19 goals. I know we weren't terrible at scoring the ball last year, but you still see a bit of room for improvement.
Oh, definitely, mate. And like you say, like with Charlie, and then, I think Owies is up for a big year. I think, last year would have built his confidence dramatically, and he comes in this year, especially with Vossi there. Voss, I have a lot of respect for Voss, as a player, and obviously he was doing something at Port Adelaide. They were no mugs. So, and the way he gets the midfield going, I reckon it would be so much for Dow and for Kennedy. just giving them a bit of confidence, and using Cripper as you get in kind of guy, get the ball and get it out to Dow, and then create some space for him with a Shepherd or what is, so Dow can just take off, and kick it straight into the forward line, and getting the ball to the guys with good disposal, like Dow, like Walshy, Sard, and all those kind of guys. So Harry's getting the best options, or Harry and Charlie, rather than the ball, over on their head, where people can just come in and punch it rather than out in front, so Harry can run onto it.
Yeah, seems like that's what the better teams do. They lower the eyes, they pinpoint a target rather than kick and hope. I think we've been one of those kick and hope teams for a bit too long.
We definitely have, mate. I'm by the time I was 4 years old, Carlton had played in 3 grand finals.
Wow.
69, was it 70 or 71 and 72 or whatever it was. So I'm wanting to get back to those days, mate. The last 26 years has been, quite disappointing. And, talking to a few of the Blues supporters over here in WA, mate, we're all excited. I'm just a bit disappointed. I can't come to your season opener and things like that. But, hopefully we'll get to see each other in September, mate.
Well, that's the thing. I'm going to try and commit to coming to Perth this year. I know your rules are a little bit stricter over there in WA, and we don't know what's around the corner, but I'm sure that we will cross paths at some point, mate.
Yeah, sounds good, mate.
Good on you, mate. Thanks for joining, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Thanks, Terry.
See ya. All right. Lucky last. Chris.
How you going, mate?
Mate, I'm good. I like the backdrop you've got there.
Yeah, I thought I'd do something nice this time. I've been to bed too many times.
What's happening? What's on your mind from today?
I'm really positive about today, mate. At the end of the day, it's a practice game, and the players are going to probably get tired, and by the end of the game. But I thought the start was fantastic. I mean, the pressure. How good's the pressure, mate? Bloody hell, we look like we've actually got a real plan to keep the ball inside 50 this time, which is really nice because, last year we knew how many times they just bounced the ball out of the 50, but, it was a lot better this game, and it was really hard for Seattle to score, which is the number one thing. So we did very well, I thought.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get in nice and early before the first quarter, and then people kind of got stuck because it was just an influx of people. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head, the ball might have entered the St Kilda forward 50 twice, maybe 3 times in the whole quarter. We seemed to get the ball and lock it into our front half for the majority of that first quarter. And that's, as I mentioned the imagination before, like that's where the imagination starts running wild. Like, wow, if we can just emulate that pressure for 4 quarters, then that's what's going to take us from being a team in this, 9th to 13th bracket and put us into that, 7th to 10th bracket, and then go up to that, 3rd to 8th bracket. So, just a nice day today. Nothing over the top, too crazy good. And in some ways, I don't want it to be easy at this point in the year. I want there to be challenges because I want to see how we respond to them. And that was one of the criticisms last year. Like when we were challenged, we just sort of dropped a bit. And, a game that was an arm wrestle today is a game that we probably lose for the most part last year when it's up in the air and it's a close game. So no Kool-Aid just yet, but we'll take it.
Yeah, no Kool-Aid yet, mate. But I'm actually very interested for next week against Melbourne. That's the real game I think I'm more excited about. Melbourne coming into the season, they're going to be really fired up for last year to be seen as an abolition or a COVID year or whatever. I think they're going to really come at this in hard. So I think it's a real good test for our boys next week to show, is this pressure just, against St Kilda's and against Gold Coast, or are we willing to do this against the best teams? Is this 4 quarters? It's nice for a quarter. It's like for a practice match first quarter, that's nice. But, we're here to win premierships. We're not here to win games in February. We don't want to be the February premiers. So
love it. I could not agree more.
Yeah, but no, there's good signs. They're becoming a lot smarter. If I be more specific, I really liked Cripps drifting a bit, becoming that long kick out of the kick out square from the back, and just he almost like a quarterback. They're using that almost as like a quarterback player where they're the start of the chain. If they can get that kick to about defensive 50, the player usually with the ball will hopefully be Williams, Sard, and sometimes Chera or Cripps. They're those players that really have the good courage to take those kicks. And we didn't see a lot of that last year where the players were brave enough to take those kicks, especially when we're under the pump. So it was nice that they did that in the first quarter, but also those kicks mean the most when you're under pressure. And, it's a big moment if you miss it. So I'd like to see more of that against Melbourne, but we'll have to wait and see, of course.
Yep. No, well said, mate. Great to chat with you. We'll reconvene next week and do it all over again and see how we come up and what we look like against the best in the comp.
Yeah, I'm confident about next week, so I reckon we'll have a good showing.
Love it. All right, mate. You have a good night.
You too, mate. See you later.
See ya. All right, ladies and gents, that'll do it. A full-on day of Carlton content. From the game to the review to the fan cams, things are starting to feel good again. Things are starting to feel normal again. We laid one brick today. We've got another one next week, and hopefully we get through unscathed. And then it all begins. We've got 22 days, I think, until round one. So very exciting. Thanks for joining tonight. Hope you enjoyed the day, and we'll chat to you soon.